Hi there again, guys. I've just got back from today's game, which was Milton Keynes against AFC Wimbledon. And I just wanted to record some thoughts on the game, and also about actually quite an unsavoury incident I've encountered today, which has kind of put a bit of a dampener on the whole things. And actually, I want to start with that because actually I view this as the most important thing that's come out of today's game, and no matter what the result would have been, this is more important than that. Obviously I have a season ticket, and where I park is sometimes at where I work, which is near Bletchley train station, and that obviously takes me the same route as many of the away fans, and there's never any issues. I've done that many times before, and has never once been an issue. I quite like it because it gives me about half an hour's walk there and back, which is obviously very good for me, and then I can enjoy a nice beer at the ground and so on. Talking of beers, I hope you don't mind because I'm actually quite thirsty right now. And yeah, on the way back, there was a group of kids congregated outside of the Bletchley Working Men's Club, clearly after a fight, and these kids were in balaclavas and were goading the fans walking by. Now, I assume that they were attempting to goad the away fans into a fight, of which I wasn't one. I don't wear colours particularly in terms. I'm not really a big fan of football kit tops because I find them unbreathable, and I end up sweating a lot and stinking everything out, which isn't nice. But it's very, very poor. Football is a tribal game in this country, but whether or not somebody is a fan of either of these two clubs, if you are going to a game, you do not deserve to be threatened in any way. And it's appalling that in 2019 these things still happen. And I'm reasonably lucky. I was on my own, but I'm a reasonably well-built guy who maybe enjoys his beer and curry a bit too much. But I'm not really the type of person that would be coming chasing up the bit. There could have been families going by. There could have been younger people, no matter what, who could have been fairly intimidated. Now, I'm going to be brutally honest, whether these people who were threatened were Milton Keynes or AFC fans is pretty much irrelevant. These people have gone to watch a football game, and whether or not you agree or disagree with the team they support, that is an opinion. They do not deserve to be threatened, And from a personal perspective, I go to football as an escape from the 9 to 5 of everyday work. I work bloody hard in what I do. My work contributes to the community of the town that I live in, which is MK. And these, I'm assuming that these guys are local. And the reason I assume that is because of their positioning on the route back to the train station. The reason I assume that is because of the result. The reason I assume that is, if there are Wimbledon fans wanting to make trouble, you'd do it much closer to the stadium. It just wouldn't make sense otherwise. And it's whether or not it's very difficult to say whether or not these guys are fans of Milton Keynes, but I assume that they are local, and frankly, they're an embarrassment to the community, no matter whether they are fans or not. And it is a shame, but ultimately it's a big town these days, Milton Keynes, and there are some areas which are run down, but it's just not an excuse. It's just not an excuse. These people are out there looking for a fight, and who knows, maybe they'll get one, because the tensions run high between sets of fans of Milton Keynes and AFC, and it's. I would put this down as the saddest experience that I've had at a football game, because there's just no need for it. Whether Milton Keynes obviously won the game. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But whether Milton Keynes won or whether AFC won, obviously Milton Keynes got thumped last time I saw them, which was Peterborough. And although they lost that game, this absolutely trumps it. It's appalling. And hopefully the police who were on the scene, to be fair to them, have caught them and frankly stick them behind bars. Because it's not good enough. Whether or not if you're a Milton Keynes fan, and you are thinking that somebody from AFC coming to support the game deserves that, then I'm sorry, that's poor. You may disagree with their opinions, absolutely, and you can argue it to the hilt over a few beers, but at the end of the day, football is a game, okay? And there are more important things in life, and you can agree or disagree with me on that. Maybe it's my job that I know that there are more important things in life. It's it's just very sad. So yeah, moving on to the game itself, a very strange game, I thought. Very much a game of two halves. So, obviously, Milton Keynes were very much in control for the first, pretty much the first 45 minutes. It went 2-0 up. The first goal, Sam Num, I can never say his name. He's a local kid. It's really good to see two local kids in the starting lineup today. Both I thought did pretty well. Although 29, whose name I can't remember, faded as the game went on. But anyway, he showed some good touches. But yeah, it looked a bit of a mistake from the defence. It was obviously well finished, hit both posts. I mean, there's not very much a keeper can do if he hits both posts and then goes in. So and then Healy's goal, which you'll probably only see on the highlights, Healy's finish, but actually what went before that was a series of passing, which must have been 30 or 40 passes and finished extremely well. And Milton Keynes were well on top by this point and were very much in control of the game. And then inexplicably seemed to take their foot off the gas. And, they could have had another one maybe before half time. Pigott should have done better with a chance for Wimbledon. Headed straight at the keeper when either side would have forced the keeper into a good save. But, Milton Keynes were well in control, and you felt that if they'd have really gone for the jugular, they could have won the game very easily at that point. A third goal, very close to half time or shortly after half time would have killed the game. And Wimbledon at that point looked that they were there for the taking, frankly. They were disappointing. I mean, they obviously haven't won a game yet. But I think what you were what I was expecting is this is obviously a game which is hyped up. It's a game which is people always say how much the clubs hate each other. Well, I think it's generally one way, to be honest. So in the first half, it was tepid from AFC. Okay, it was absolutely tepid, and there was no real. I wouldn't say they weren't trying. Okay, but what I would say is if the ball is being passed around you a lot, then you want to kind of get into them. You need to show a different side. You need to be physical, maybe. You need to kind of really get, maybe in their faces is the wrong phrase, but you would expect them to be up for the fight more. I mean, I don't know whether that's the wrong turn of phrase, but, obviously if a team is passing the ball around you, you need to really do something about it. And especially if the team is Milton Keynes, you would expect AFC to really kind of up it a bit, but there just didn't seem to be anything there. You can, from that first half showing, if AFC repeat that type of first half showing, in their games this season, it is going to be an extremely long season. And if any AFC fans are watching this, they may well do, thinking, I'm trying to be reasonably objective here. I mean, obviously I was sitting with the Milton Keynes fans, and I've had the Milton Keynes season ticket, and that's who I was supporting, but I am trying to be reasonably fair to both teams here. The first half was extremely disappointing, and I can't imagine that the fans going there would have been happy to see that. There was very little threat. There was very little kind of getting up and going. They didn't seem to be up for it. I looked at the stats at half time, and Milton Keynes had 71% possession, which is a phenomenal amount. Not that I can say that word either. Possession. And to be fair, most of the time they weren't really going anywhere, but if you have the ball, it's very difficult for the opposition to get the ball. Obviously, it's very difficult for the opposition to do something with it. Create lots of chances, scoring, and eventually you're going to get chances if you have the ball, which they did, and 2-0 was probably a reasonably fair reflection at half time. I don't know what Tisdale said to Milton Keynes at half time, because they were poor in the second half, extremely poor. Whereas AFC actually showed something in the second half and could easily have had a point. But I think we always felt that if we felt there was another gear for MK to go into, and we felt that they were reasonably successful causing trouble with the ball over the top to Sam Numbi. He clearly had the beating of his defender, but the issue is, if you keep doing that over and over and over and over again, it becomes less effective. And if you do that, the defender's going to drop deeper. There's going to be less space for you to hit the ball into, and that means the chances of it becoming successful are less. And you need to start passing it shorter, and that means the defense has got to come up. And then you get room to play the ball over the top, and so on. The defender did not look comfortable at all. But the bottom line is that second half, Milton Keynes did very little, and they were resorting to this long ball, and I think that played very much into AFC's hands. But AFC played much better second half. They did create a few chances. And really, they had enough chances to score more than the one goal. So I think going away from it, they'll probably be disappointed not to get something from the game. And Milton Keynes were quite fortunate, really, to hold on. I think longer term, you got some lessons to kind of think and take from the game. Obviously, if you're AFC, you can't just sit back and let teams kind of control the game, because teams at this level are good enough that eventually they're going to take a chance, and if they have shot after shot after shot, that they're going to take the chance eventually. The right back looked alright. Keeper didn't do an awful lot wrong for AFC. It was just that the first half they dropped off. It seemed to drop off really deep, and it was a surprise. Milton Keynes are not that good, as shown by the previous result. The 4-0 hammering by Peterborough. So I think there's a couple of bits to learn from that. Obviously, the wasted chances. Pickett had a reasonable header, a reasonable headed chance that he probably should have scored from. But if they repeat the first half performance consistently across the course of the year, it's going to be an extremely long, hard season for them. They are quite comfortably the least effective side that I've seen so far. They're very unlike the old Wimbledon, where you used to have the likes of the Vinnie Jones and players that would really kind of get in the opposition's face and, I wouldn't say control the game, but you would recognise where your strengths, where your weaknesses are, and you kind of go from there. AFC obviously have an advantage in that we'll wait to see how good Bolton are now. But the amount of points they've got to make up is quite a lot, and they haven't. To gel a team really, that quickly is very difficult. But effectively you're playing for 2 relegation places, and a few wins gets you out of there. From MK point of view, this is a very strange game, because you've got a lot of potential good points from there. The 2 young kids that come in looked every inch Football League players. It's definitely controlled the game in the first half. They seemed much more patient with what they were doing. They didn't create loads of chances, but they were in control of the game. Second half, when they tried to pass it, looked a decent side. But in the second half, the problem was that because Noom was giving his defender, whose name I forget, it wasn't Nightingale, so it was the other one, such a hard time. It was, we'll knock it over the top and see if he can do something. But it has to be, successful sides have more than just the punt over the top. And there really wasn't a reason to resort to that. They were comfortably on top, playing the way that they were. Another goal would have killed the game, and they may well have scored more goals. So I think that's a bit disappointing from their point of view. In the end, Milton Keynes were hanging on a bit, So I think a bit disappointed. I think Tisdale has got a few things wrong in recent weeks. It looked very much like a tactical decision to basically poof it long, because everyone was doing it and it was a consistent ploy. I think it's very much the wrong decision. Every now and again, obviously, you want to try and exploit the pace over the top if the striker's got the beating of a defender, but you don't want to be doing it all the time. As I previously suggested, and it was a bit disappointing from that point of view. But I think overall, obviously 3 points for MK. They've now got 9, so I don't know what the team in third bottom, have got. I think it was Wimbledon before the start of play. Not 100% sure. But Wimbledon only had 2 points. So they're a minimum of 7 points ahead of those now. I would struggle to see where the wins are consistently going to come from Wimbledon on their current show. Which is obviously not what the fans want to hear, but ultimately they're 5-6 games into the season. They've not won one yet. That won't be a surprise to hear. They've had some hard games away at Ipswich and Sunderland, but you still probably would have expected to beat, one of Wycombe or Rotherham at home. And it's going to be a long, hard season. I think Milton Keynes will be fine. There is something else, obviously, I want to just touch on. I mean, Winkelmann's come out. He's been a bit in the press this week, Winkelmann. He's come out and said that MK are losing £10,000 a week, and I saw a story in one of the papers kind of running with it, and not one of the papers, it's a website, sorry. £10,000 a week basically equates to £3.5 million a year. And some people are getting excited about it or not, and thinking this is a massive thing. I mean, actually, £3.5 million in the grand scheme of things isn't a massive amount for a football club. I suspect you'll find that the majority of football clubs are running on a daily, weekly loss of about that. If you look in League One, there is absolutely no way that the likes of Peterborough are not making net loss. Those guys average 6,000-7,000 a week, and yet they're paying £1.3 million for a striker. how much they pay Maddison. There's absolutely no way they're not making a net loss week in, week out. You look at the likes of Sunderland, they've still got huge losses going on. So some people have made a big deal. I mean, one of the things that Milton Keynes obviously have is a whacking great big stadium. And, they held 3 concerts over the summer. That's probably wiped out the 3.5 million. You got the Liverpool game, you had the Brazil game last year. I suspect that if the football club is losing £3.5 million a year, I suspect that the people who manage it, i.e. Winkleman and his people who advise them, are actually going to be relatively happy with that, because the stadium will make enough money otherwise, and more, I'd imagine, for it to be relatively successful. I wouldn't worry massively about that. Okay, well, thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed or not. I mean, obviously, I would say overall, I think Milton Keynes got away with one a little bit, to be honest. I thought AFC could easily have nicked a goal at the end. But 3 points is 3 points, and you've got to move on. You learn, and they will have to be better against Ipswich on Tuesday coming. Otherwise, I think Ipswich will come out on top in that one. But we'll see. You've got a week and a half before that. Like I said, thank you for listening, and hopefully you all enjoy the next few days, wherever you may be, and not quite winter yet, but we are getting there. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.